Hello, everybody. Ella J here on behalf of WrestleZone, and today I am joined by the hell-bent vixen Viva Van. So, how are you today?
I'm doing great today. How are you doing?
I'm fantastic to be speaking with you. You have had a absolute whirlwind of a year, my friend. And to cap it all off, we are on the heels of the release of the 2022 PWI Women's 150 edition, which featured, of course, your official debut on the list, coming in at in the top third, impressively number 50. So can you please share your initial reaction to not only receiving this honor, but also making your debut on the list?
It feels really good. It just feels like all my hard work is finally being noticed because like for years I would look at the list, I didn't make it this year. It's okay, just gotta keep working. And finally we're here, but I did not expect to make it 50 on my first year.
I must say it is definitely well deserved. I mean, you are the five belt collector. You like honestly, you really are fully encapsulate the face of the West. There is a reason that you are, and I feel like this achievement really validates that even more. And we kind of do a watch list feature here on WrestleZone. So I mean, talking about the last year, all these accomplishments you've racked up, is there one particular match of yours that stands out to you or you feel really proud of and why?
I think I can't really like pinpoint one. I always get stuck when I get asked this question.
Yeah.
Like I feel like there's just something about PCW Ultra and Defy. Like all my matches there have been so meaningful there, and I'm so grateful to be a regular at Defy, to be the first woman to bring a title there, and then now like just being able to rep West Coast overall. Because that was one of the things that I noticed in the previous years. There weren't that many West Coast wrestlers on it.
Yeah, I feel like that's a trend that I've noticed myself too. And I know the last time I talked to you on my own channel, we were kind of talking about like the struggles of West Coast versus East Coast, because there is a lot of buzz definitely here on the East Coast where I am. But on the West Coast, for some reason, like Vegas, Arizona, Washington, California, there's a lot of like great talent that are up and coming. But I feel like there's like Prestige, obviously there's Defy, there's FSW, but for some reason it just like feels different with the coverage for some reason, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I don't know. Like there's just for obviously I felt like wrestling probably started in the East Coast, right? So
Yeah.
that's more dominant and there's just so much more promotions because it started over there first. But I also think like the pandemic helped the West Coast back a lot too. Cause during 2020 a lot of wrestlers moved out
That's
of
a
the
good
West
point.
Coast to get more work in the East Coast. But I was like, I'm glad I stuck it out because like I feel like the West Coast is thriving right now. We have so many great promotions going on, and a lot of people from the East Coast are finally hearing about it. So I'm happy about that.
I am very happy too. You mentioned the PCW Ultra Women's Championship that you just defended against decorated veteran Sumie Sakai for the second time, might I add, but this time it was on her official retirement tour, which you got to be a part of. So, can you tell us about that moment, which you described as an honor?
It's just an honor to just wrestle Sumi Sakai because she's the first, Women of Honor champion. Period. There's you just don't need to say anything else. She's the first one. So that's an honor in itself, but also just the 20 years that she's put in has been amazing. And I wish more people knew about her, more people will give her the credit that she deserves. And my first match with her, I was not ready. I didn't even know I was gonna
2019, late 2019, I recall, I believe.
yeah, late 2019. I had no idea that I was wrestling her that until I showed up that day.
Really?
Yeah. So when I showed up, I obviously wasn't, I felt like I didn't know who I was yet at the time as a wrestler, and also not knowing that I was gonna wrestle really like messed with my like, your mental, like how you prepare yourself before a match. You want to know when it's coming up, not like, oh, last minute and then you go on. I mean, of course I wasn't gonna miss out on the opportunity, but I took it and I wasn't ready then. But this time around, like it just felt good to like get that approval from her that I've grown a lot, and it's almost like her passing the torch to me. So it's a huge honor.
What would you say? I don't know, because I feel like it's one of those situations where it's not every day you get to be in like the ring with like a 20-year veteran like a Sumi Sakai. You said that like you've learned and you've grown so much from her. Was there anything like particularly you took away either like from the match or something that she actually like told you or you watched?
Just from, I think, the way she controlled me in 2019. If you ever watched the match, I think it's on YouTube somewhere. Just the way how she controlled me. She definitely showed who was vet then. But I think I gave her a run for her money this time. So
You did. You were about a year plus in at that point, so definitely still pretty fresh into your career, but already like 4 or 5 years now into it. It's crazy to see how much you've accomplished and rightfully earning your spot atop one of the PWI slots. But I mean, we're talking about championships. Miss, you've collected not one, not two, not three, but five over the last year with obviously PCW, FSW, Big Time Wrestling, NTLL, and AWF. So, firstly, where do you even store all of your gold, honestly?
I usually have it hanging on this wall right here, but since I did come back from traveling recently, I haven't put them back up yet. But that's where I usually store them, on the wall or on the shelf. I do have a bunch of like title holders too.
It's crazy because I think you are the only person other than like maybe a high on right now that I'm thinking of like on the independent wrestling scene that has like multiple championships at once. What do you think like when you're just looking at it, do you ever reflect and be like, damn, I really did all of that?
Um, I'm grateful for it every day. I look at it. That's why I hang them up, which I need to do. Thanks for reminding me. But that's why I hang them up so that I can look at it every day, because I remember there was a time where I was just wishing for just two titles, and then just working at it and working at it, putting my head down, just making sure getting all my reps in the indies. And I looked up one day and I was like, wow, I'm actually collecting a lot. Like let's see how long I can keep it.
I know. And now you're the five belt champion of the world. Do you feel like being a champion, obviously, when you first started out, you actually got a championship pretty early into your career, about a year into your career. So you were kind of like thrust into that championship caliber pretty quickly. Do you think that being a champion has taught you anything in particular or felt like has helped elevate you in any way?
I learned that it is not the title that makes the champion. It is the champion themselves. Like you, I feel like the person has to make it meaningful, or else it's just a prop. You know what I mean? So that's one of the things that I learned, and I like try my best to just show everyone what I'm made of, and not let the belts make me who I am.
And I feel like you have definitely established your own unique identity. Like you're the face of the West. You're the first ever Vietnamese American female professional wrestler. You are the five belt champion. You're the Hellbent Vixen. You also have Hellbent Glam. I feel like you're a really well all arounder. Like you're like a quadruple. I think you're a five-way threat too as well. Just in life. And you model too. I mean, you just do it all, to be honest. I don't know how you keep up with it, but most recently you captured the FSW Women's Championship in Las Vegas. So, I mean, how does that feel now knowing you hold gold in three different states now and further adding to your legacy as the face of the West?
FSW has been a great promotion. They've treated me with such care when I first started there. I did not think that I would ever get a chance to be a champion there one day. I don't know why.
Really?
It never crossed my mind, because there at the time when I started, it was a women's tournament.
Yeah.
So like, there's so many girls here. I'm just happy to be here, you know. And as time went by, I kept coming back. I kept coming back, and eventually, like, I had a title shot, so I went for it. And I'm very grateful. FSW is also another prestigious title on the West Coast, and I'm very happy. I mean, Taya Valkyrie used to hold this title too, you know.
Did. Maserati, Sandra Moon. It comes a long list of
And
great.
Starks,
Yeah.
there's a list of girls that held the title.
Of course. And I mean, because of your massive success, five championship reigns, and now a wrestler on the PWI Women's 150 list, how do you think that next year, you finally earned your spot this year, but how will you better or elevate yourself even more so you can keep keep climbing those ranks, Viva?
I guess I gotta keep collecting more titles.
Viva 10 belts. I don't know what your nickname would be at that point. But we got to think about it.
We'll think about it when we cross that bridge.
It's fun too because you are one who's like all around the West Coast integrating. It's crazy. You're still only 4 years in, but I feel like there's been like a surplus of like newer talent or people who have now just getting on the rise, like a Milo, like a Sandra Moon, like an Alice Blair, Mighty Myra, Jin Savani. The list goes on and on, honestly. But looking forward to like this next year, I feel like you've established yourself. This was your year in the West. Like there's no doubting that. Who are some certain talents that you have been really impressed with or you think should be on other people's radar going forward?
Going forward, I definitely think Sandra Moon for sure. She's someone that's been killing it in the West Coast as well. And also just representing West Coast. Milo, trying to think. Johnny Robbie is another West Coast girl that's been killing it. So I think if she makes the list soon, I see it coming.
I'm so excited for the West Coast. I feel like it's just blossoming. Like the pandemic, I feel like really held it back a bit because California was shut down for a
Yeah.
while. But you got some good vets up in there too with Ruby Reyes, Delilah Doom, and all of that. And I feel like you've been holding down the fort very steadily in the West Coast. And I'm really looking forward to whatever you achieve next year, to be honest with you.
Oh, thanks.
And I feel like too, I mean, we have to talk about obviously you're pretty glammed up, I would say. You're a pretty glam person, but I want to talk about your ring gear too, because I'm obsessed with it. I mean, the dark hellbent, sometimes punk metal vibe you got going on there. So what are some of your main sources of inspiration or stories behind your ring gear? I'm very intrigued.
My ring gear. How did I just know that like I wanted to incorporate heavy metal into it, right? But I also love like comic book characters, like Lady Death, comic book characters like that. Like just not obviously not as revealing as Lady Death if some of you know who she is, but I would incorporate that with like what I like to wear in a day-to-day basis. So it was very hard explaining it to my gear maker, but he was able to create it better than I could even imagine. So I can't even take the credit for it. So shout out to my gear maker for
Yeah,
that.
I'm obsessed with like obviously, I mean, red and black are pretty much stable. I find it funny though that your favorite color is teal, ironically.
Oh yeah, it
Will you
is.
ever incorporate more teal into your gear?
I don't know. Uh I feel like I incorporate the red because of my red
Yeah,
streak.
of course.
Yeah. But teal in my gear maybe one day.
No, why not have a teal streak, Viva?
I mean, one day it's gonna have to change, right?
Yeah,
Can't
I
have
mean they got temporary color, so you could like test it out and then just wash it out if you don't
there's
like it.
also purple.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I was thinking about that. I was thinking about my next gear color because I'm always doing black and silver or red.
Yeah.
So what about, gotta switch it up sometimes, huh?
Mm. Okay, okay. A little tease maybe for the future. I'm curious to talk about like comic book characters. I'm curious to know more about the art that's behind you here today.
Oh, it's just a band poster or band
Okay.
banner. Yeah, this is the death metal band, one of my favorites, Dissection and Entombed. So that's
Oh.
the artwork of their album cover.
You used to be in a band yourself, but which I think is great. Do you still tune up? I mean, you probably don't have time for it to be honest, but do you still like tune up the band every so often?
Oh man, I wish. I mean, I do death metal vocals on my own. But other than that, like I do wish I had a band going, but it's really hard to like be in a band when I'm always traveling.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
I'm
also it's hard being in a band in general. Like five different personalities are always
yeah.
clashing.
What was the biggest challenge for you when you guys were active?
The biggest challenge, I think it's been about 8 years since I've been in a band.
Okay.
8, 7 years. But at the time, I felt like the guys in my band, they loved having me as a vocalist, but they didn't respect me as a member because I was a woman.
Were you
So
the only woman in the band?
a
Yeah.
woman in the
Okay.
band. So like every time I made a suggestion, they didn't value my opinion and stuff like that. So that's a battle of its own. I'm sure it's changed now. I haven't been around like the death metal scene as much. I don't really go out to shows as much because I'm always wrestling my whole life
Yeah.
now. But I hope that's changed for other female musicians because I do see a lot more now.
I feel like that kind of crosses over into pro wrestling too, since it's like a male dominated thing. I'm personally not that educated on death metal, but it seems like it's kind of like a similar scenario where it's very male dominated. So is that something that you've also experienced in pro wrestling too, I would assume?
A little bit, not as much. I think when I came in, like there's already women before me that have already established their
True.
place in the industry, so I didn't have to deal with it as much as some of the other women did. Um, but yeah, it goes hand in hand with each other. Death metal and doing wrestling, you're performing, so I get the same high that I would get on stage now in the ring, but except I only have to worry about myself and my opponent.
True. I'm very curious too, like you are a professional vocalist. Do you have like a go-to karaoke song or a song that you feel confident in? If I asked you, I'm not saying I would. If I asked you right now, you would be able to like pull off.
The thing is, I do have a song that I always go to when I start singing, but
Okay.
the thing is, death metal vocals don't sound good a cappella. So
Fair.
without a band, it sounds pretty weird.
Fair. Fair enough. And we were talking about ring gear. I mean, you obviously have a great ensemble. I feel like I also like it because I identify with the colors too, but also like the scheme just like fits you very well. Else do you think has the best ring gear game or aesthetic in pro wrestling today? I feel like I feel like I know you might say Viperous,
Oh,
but
yeah.
she has great gear, but I'm curious to also know who else you'll say.
Vibrous is definitely one of them. Who else? I hate when I get asked questions like this because then I'm like, I go blank. I don't know why I go blank, but there's plenty of people whose gears where I'm like, it's really good. Um, was her Renee Michelle? Is that her name?
Yeah, yeah.
Her gear is beautiful. I
She
think
pulls
she,
off a lot of red too.
yeah, she does. And Kylan King's gear is also really good.
Kylan's been really upping her game. She has, I think it's orange and green, or it's like an orange and black going on right now.
Whatever
She's
she
been,
has working for
yeah,
her.
she's been really stepping it up as the mother effing king.
Yeah,
So I'm excited. I don't know. Have you two squared off yet? I don't know the answer to that.
we have it,
You not. Okay.
but I would
Mm,
love to one day.
mm. She's been really dominant. Like, I feel like everywhere except the West Coast now that I think about it. So
Uh-huh.
somebody's got to book it.
We gotta meet in the
2023.
middle, maybe.
The Hellbent Vixen versus the mother effing champ. Somebody's gotta book it. But I feel like another big part of your identity, besides being the Hellbent Vixen, the face of the West, is obviously being the first ever Vietnamese American female wrestler. To which I know one of your goals is to continue growing the Southeast Asian presence across all major promotions, and you've had a few opportunities to do that yourself. But can you give us a little more insight into why that presence is so important to you?
That presence is so important to me because growing up watching WWE, I didn't have anyone that I can be like, oh, that person's just like me. I can totally relate to them. Yeah, there were Asian wrestlers, but they weren't Vietnamese, you know? So I couldn't really identify myself as being the same as them. I mean, a lot of people will probably be like, "Oh, they're still Asian." It's actually different. You know, we're all different. There's so many different Asian cultures, and we all speak different languages. So I think just having a variety of different Asian people, Southeast Asians, uh, the reason why I mentioned Southeast Asians because I feel like Southeast Asia is so behind in wrestling that they're finally getting their foot out. They're finally having shows. They're finally having schools. They've been around probably for under a decade. So I think it's important to just shine a light on Southeast Asia and Southeast Asian wrestlers to just give us a spot and give us an opportunity because we're here and we can go.
How
And
would you how do you, at least in your years, how steadily do you think that the representation has grown? Like if you had to estimate, like where do you think that you're at right now?
uh I'd probably say 50% there.
Okay.
50 is a number of the day. But
Fair enough.
only reason why I say 50% there is because I have had like, opportunities with the AEW and WWE here and there. So they have like given me a chance to show myself to the audience, but it would be 100% when they finally sign more Southeast Asian people and put more Southeast Asian people on TV. That's when that would change.
That's what's important. And you said that you didn't really have a lot of people growing up that you could look to and really identify with, at least in the South Asian representation. So who then did you look up to or really resonate with when you were getting into the sport or really drew you in?
Um, I would probably say I was a huge Undertaker fan, but that's because I loved like horror movies and stuff like
Yes.
that. But before or
Mhm.
after that, actually, when I actually found out that SmackDown and WWF was really a thing, because I had first discovered WWF through the WrestleMania arcade game on PlayStation. So I was playing that for a few years as Undertaker. I didn't know that this thing was real until I talked to my friends about it in school one day. And they're like, oh, why don't you just watch it on Thursday nights on SmackDown when it was on
Like what?
Thursday? And I was like, wait, you're telling me this is a real thing? Like these are based off of real wrestlers. So when I started watching it, Stone Cold Steve Austin was my favorite because of his confidence, the I don't give a
Mhm.
attitude. And I just wanted to be just like him, the confidence that he had, not caring about what other people thought, because I was very insecure growing up as a kid. I was bullied. I was the only Asian girl at my school. So I was bullied a lot. I stood out, I guess, but that's who I looked up to.
Of course, and you've grown so much as a woman, as a wrestler. I mean, you're like we said, you're CEO of Hellbent Glam and all of that. You're a model. You've done just so much. You've been in a band. Like honestly, if you could acquire like one new skill, assuming you had the time, what is one thing that you've like always wanted to dip your toe into or at least explore?
One of the things that I would like to probably, well, there's two things that I would
Okay.
like to get back into is acting. I did acting and I took a break from it, but I would love to get back to that one day and maybe finally starting that band, like and keep it going. Maybe an all women band. How about that?
Mm. I know there's people, not that you have to dip into this, but you know what's crazy? There's actually a lot of wrestlers who are surprisingly like very musically gifted.
Yeah, there are.
Hmm. You'll have to restart your own band sometime whenever you have time. I don't know when that'll be.
That's the thing. I don't have time.
Fair enough. But you mentioned acting. I honestly didn't even know any of this. Was it film, commercials, improv? What kind of acting were you into and what point of your life was this?
This was before music.
Okay.
Actually. So this was like back in 2010, 2011. I was doing a lot of extra work and one of the shows that I showed up on a lot, well, I don't even think they picked it up, but it was a pilot for Diary of a Teenage Nobody. And at that time, I had half blonde and half black hair. And they used me a lot because all they needed me was to keep walking back and forth down the hallway. But I looked like a completely different person on each side because I had two different hair colors.
Mhm.
So that's something that I think is on YouTube. So Diary of a Teenage Nobody. See if you guys can find me in the back.
Interesting. What would you say is the most proud work or memorable experience you had in acting?
That was probably it.
Okay.
Because that I got rewarded with two SAG vouchers after that.
There you go.
So I was like, I just needed one more to get that SAG card, but I didn't keep it going. So that's on me.
Fair enough. But to close things out, 2023 is right around the corner, coming up very shortly. We have nothing but high hopes for you. Maybe besides starting your band, maybe, what are some of your personal and professional goals you'd like to accomplish over the next year?
My professional goal is to have that contract with either promotion, a major promotion, so I can do it full time. I mean, I am doing it full time, but
Yes.
be more stable, I guess you can
Yes,
say.
I get it.
And my personal goal would probably be to buy a house for my family.
That, oh, I mean, that's an amazing goal to have too. And I feel like once you reach that point of contract, which I don't doubt that you will achieve very, very soon, there I feel like it's just up from here for you, honestly.
Thank you.
And before we let you go, can you please tell the listeners where they can find you on all your social medias?
You guys can find me on TikTok, Twitter, IG, and Facebook at Hellbent Vixen.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Viva. I guess I'm kind of curious too, are you officially maybe planning more of a launch for Hellbent Glam, or is that kind of also like a little bit on the back burner?
So my website still has stuff for sale.
Yes.
It's just I haven't released anything new.
Okay.
That's also because I haven't had time to
Fair.
release new
Fair.
products.
You have some really nice eyeshadows, body glitters, chokers, so highly suggest checking that out.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much again for joining me here exclusively on WrestleZone. Viva, again, congratulations. Number 50, your debut on the PWI Women's 150 list. That is such an accomplishment. And who knows, maybe next year you'll double your belt count. Who knows?
Let's
Viva
do
10
it.
belts.
Oh yeah.
Thank you so much again.
Thank you.